The current generation of instructors find it difficult to teach the current generation of students. Here is a solution for that problem. We have a knowledge assistant developed using a local LLM which is hosted on Huawei's ECS. So our ECS is a GPU which is running on a public IP which is called as EIP here. So this is the DeFi system running on Huawei ECS cloud. This is going to use the backend local LLM which is on DeepSeek. So the DeFi is of two types. We have what is called workflow type, the other one is called chat flow. Chat flow is an interactive system similar to any public Gen AI tool. But workflow is something that runs once. So let's see how is our flow setup on chat flow, DeFi chat flow. This is the DeFi chat flow system. Here you can see the very first step is to get user input. From obtaining user input, it goes all the way to get an answer through an LLM here. So the LLM answers based on the request of the user. So let's see what are the user inputs that we obtain. The user input we obtain are these: learning level, study style, topic of study, week of study, what to do, as well as student learning. So how does these things appear? Under learning level, we have beginner, intermediate, advanced level. Study style, theorist, experiential. Remember, these two are for the students' type of learning, according to the type of learning of the students. Here you can type the topic of study or a question for which you require an answer. And then for the week of study, you would choose a week number. Week 1, week 2, week 3. In this example, we have week 5 until week 5 set up, but we can set it up to any number of weeks we want. And then what to do? Here are the various options you have: summarization, questions generation, example generation, then explanation, low stack test, distributed practice of important ideas, and then we have student learning assessment, and finally an end to it. So these are the various components of our input stage. So we get all these input from the user. Plus there is also user input.query. This is what the user types in the query tag here. Okay, here is what the user types in. Let's moving on. The very next step is to extract from the query of the user what is that they want to do and what is the topic of study they want to do. So user query is defined in a specific format in our system. Our format includes what to do, semicolon, and the topic of study. So summarization, semicolon, GDP, for example. So GDP is the topic of study, summarization is what to do. So this is done using a Python code here, Python script here. Then we assign these variables, the values of what to do as well as the topic of study, as a conversation variable. So here you can see we have the conversation variables. So these are two variables. One is what to do, the other one is topic of study. So we will store them from the user input. And then we have what is called knowledge retrieval. Here we have our own knowledge which is stored inside the knowledge base. So if you go into the knowledge base, you will see we have uploaded the slides, the material of the course. So if I click one of them, you will see there's a metadata. The metadata states this material is for week 1. And if I choose something else, for example, you will see this says week 2. So we have segregated the materials into week 1, week 2, and so on. So based on the week 1 and week 2, we want to retrieve the data using knowledge retrieval. So we will read that knowledge base and we have metadata filtering. So here we will choose a study week. Based on the week of study, the student has input inside the user input. So here, if they have entered week 1, you will only retrieve data from week 1. If they have entered week 2, you will get from week 2 and so on. So the very next step in our system is if else. Here we are looking at what to do of the user. If the user says he wants to do summarization, you will call the LLM for summarization purposes. If the user says we want to do question generation, you will call question generation and so on. Appropriately, the respective calls to the local LLM is done based on what you want to do. And in the what you want to do, we do accept uppercase and lowercase as well. That's why it's mentioned here capital S summarization or lower S summarization. We could add many other features here. Right, so once this is done, the next one is the LLM phase here. Here is the LLM summarization. This is calling our local DeepSeek, and the context is what we read or what you have already read from the knowledge base, which is a knowledge retrieval, and we have the user prompt as well as a system prompt here. So based on the user's topic of study, this task is the LLM summarization is to summarize the topic of study from the respective content. The respective content might be for week 1, might be for week 2, and so on according to the week of study chosen by the user. Similarly, if you go into question generation, you will find here there is an LLM prompt, and then you have example, explanation, low stack test, assessment of student learning, and then if you go into distributed topic, which is basically distributed weeks, we call it as distributed weeks. This is distributed practice of important ideas. This is slightly different than the other options we have. The difference here is if you say week 3, it should give you answers from week 1, week 2 and week 3. So it should take all the prior weeks including the week you are specifying. So that's what is done here. So if you choose, for example, week 3, it will include all the 3 weeks here. Okay, so like week 2 and week 3, so then you will see that it's going to choose under knowledge retrieval. So here it is knowledge retrieval for week 3. If you see the conditions, you will see week 3, week 2 and week 1, all the 3 weeks are included. This is for week 2. So if you go the condition here, look at the condition, it is week 2 and week 1. So accordingly, we will change the knowledge retrieval based on the week you have chosen, based on the week the user has chosen. Then we send a query to the system, which is distributed practice of important ideas, and then we have an answer from the user, from the system itself. And one more thing we have is called assessment of student learning. The assessment of student learning, the main objective of this is for the instructor to upload to the system what are students' answers. So the instructor conducts a quiz or a test or whatever, some kind of assessment, collects the student answers. The answers might be correct answers, might be incorrect answers. The instructor uploads them into the system. Multiple students' results are stored here or sent here. So you have the questions followed by correct and incorrect answers. And then the system is expected to analyze them and inform the instructor, these are the areas which the student finds them as important, or these are the areas where the student finds them as confusing, and so on and so forth. So this will help the instructor to arrange his lecture, to deliver his lecture in such a way the student benefits from it. So this could be used by the students themselves. If let's say they have a topic of doubt, they can type in the question, they can also type in what they think could be right answer, wrong answer. So they could type in multiple answers for a question and let the system tell them what is their confusion or what is the area they are finding it difficult with. So this is the chat flow. So let me show you the workflow as well. It's very similar to the chat flow. It's very similar, except that here we don't have few things here. We don't have the Python code which will extract the query, which will divide it into what to do as well as the topic of study. This is not here. And then if you see for the example generation, we have a specific code again in Python, which is just to extract the examples in a format we want. So if you want it, we can keep it. Otherwise, it's not mandatory here. Right, let's run the system here. So here we are having the chat system. This is the chat flow. So let's say I choose beginner, choose theorist, and then let's say this is gross domestic product. Okay, let's choose week 1 and say we want to do summarization. And then this is not necessary because this is only for if you choose the option as student learning assessment. Okay, so that's not what we are doing. So we leave it blank. Here we will type, this is our query. So I'm going to type summarization GDP, for example. I can type CPI whatsoever. So if I click next, it's going into the workflow and it's going to give me an output from the system. Similarly, if I do the same for a workflow, this is the workflow, right? I'm going to choose here. I'm going to write gross domestic product. Let's say we choose week 1. We choose your summarization and then we just execute here. So this is the workflow and this is our chat flow. So it's basically running, and then I would see there's an error here. The reason I'm getting this error right now, okay, because I'm unable to call the LLM. So what is the problem? So the solution is I got to go to the settings, and then I got to go to the model provider, go to manage credentials, choose this edit here, and if you notice the IP address has been changed. So I got to go here and change the IP address to the current IP address. So if I can just save it here, escape, cancel this, escape this, then I can go back and do public updates. I'm updating the system so that the students can use it, and I will run it here. So now I'm going to run here the same thing. So let me choose this, choose here, and I would say gross domestic product, and I will say here week 1, I will say summarization, execute. So you could see it starts, it's going to go to the knowledge retrieval, it goes to if else, summarization, and it gives me an answer. Okay, it's going to provide me data from my system here. So let's go back and do the same. Let's run the chat flow. Okay, here's my chat flow. Let's publish it. Any update you make sure you have to publish. Let's run this again. So this is my chat flow. Let's say here tourist, and then I would say in short GDP. Let's say week 1. Let's say here summarization. I'm going to type here. I can be smaller, lowercase, uppercase, doesn't matter. And then if I execute this, I would expect it to run, gives me answer. It's giving me a quick answer because it has already executed the same thing, right? So let's say if I'm going to say questions under GDP. So remember, this is the format: questions followed by semicolon and then the topic of study, right? So once this is done, you can execute the next time. So this is the interactive one. This is like any public Gen AI tool. So it's running now. So this is answer for GDP summarization. Once it is done, I can run. So this is my second one. I'm doing questions with GDP. You will see now, right? So it is thinking, and then it's going to give me an answer with questions. So this is the overall idea of the system. The system has certain stages here, from the starting, getting the user input, and then calling the respective LLM, and then getting the answer. So this is the chat flow. So you will see here it gives you questions. It also says from which slide, tells you from where it is citing the material, and so on and so forth. So here it has cited L1 and chapter 2 because both of them are assigned to week 1 in this material. I hope it's clear. Thank you.